chucked water on the floor, which would not be a shocking thing. So today's little cooking thing is gonna be something that I've kind of gone back and forth in the past with doing, but I decided that it's gonna be a thing. I am making a meal that I have not made in, I'm gonna say, about 10 to 12 years. It's just something that I've kind of strayed away from making because it's originally from a time in my life that wasn't really great. I'm basically making my poverty meal. When I was little, we didn't have a lot. I think I've referenced this a few times in past vlogs. When I say we didn't have a lot, I really mean we had nothing. It's not something, you know, that I like to talk about, but it's something that's important because it really does coincide with my weight. It coincides with a lot of aspects of my life. So this is a really big part of it. I was what I like to call a food bank baby. So my parents didn't really go grocery shopping. We went to the grocery store, I'm going to assume once every 2 to 3 months when we had saved up enough money to go to the grocery store. But every week we visited a food bank, and we had 4 that were in our rotation. Every week we went to a different one, and the only thing that my family was like hard up for every single time we went to the food bank was an ingredient that I'm going to use today. So today I am making mushroom macaroni. Mushroom macaroni is made with 2 ingredients, just 2 ingredients, and that is pasta and cans of mushroom soup. When my dad got back from the food banks and he had mushroom soup, we were ecstatic because that meant we didn't have to have spaghetti with just plain pasta sauce. It meant we could have mushroom macaroni. Those are the only 2 ingredients. 2 cans of these if we were lucky, 1 if we weren't, and basic, very cheap pasta, usually shells or penne. I'm going to be elevating it today because I have not had the opportunity to make this. My father actually is very excited to eat this. He hasn't eaten this in quite some time, and he does actually love it. So I'm going to elevate it. I have cavatappi. This is also called celatani noodles. They're Scooby-Doo noodles. They're Brit's favorite noodles. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of onion. I'm adding some mushroom, additional mushroom. I'm adding peas, and then we are going to be cooking up 1.5 pounds of ground beef to add into it for protein, because this didn't have any protein in it when we were growing up. It was just those 2 ingredients. So I'm going to be elevating this a little bit, and yeah, eating my poverty meal for the first time in about 1.5 decades. So I'm just gonna prep everything. I have the cans of soup out. I have the pasta. Pasta water is boiling right now. Pan is heating up for the ground beef. Have the vegetables. I just have to get my chopper out for the onions. When we were kids, we never added vegetables to this. This is, again, there was, even when we had a little bit of money, we never tainted the sanctity of mushroom macaroni with any other ingredient. So I'm really happy that I'm able to add protein to this meal now. Even though ground beef is still relatively cheap, I didn't want to add chicken to it. For some reason, chicken just didn't stick out of my brain as the way to go. There were a few things that we always had in our house for vegetables as well, but we never added them. We always had peas. We always had carrots, and we always had beans, but they were from the can, and I couldn't imagine putting those inside of this. So my father disliked spaghetti with no ground beef in it. So I remember when there were times where they didn't have any mushroom soup to give us, and we literally lived on spaghetti with just plain pasta sauce for a number of months. We had that every single day for dinner because that was all we got at the food banks. I don't even remember the first time we made this. I do believe the idea came from a neighbor of ours, somebody that we've been friends with for several years. Her mom was making it, and we asked what it was, and she told us what it was. And we started making it, and it just became that. I think I was maybe, oh gosh, I don't even know how old I was. I want to say 11 or 12 when we started making this. Where's my meat mattress? So we had like spaghetti for a number of years before we started making this. I was between the ages of 10 and 12. So my mom made it for the first time. My dad instantly fell in love with it. Absolutely loved it. And it just became a staple where we were hoping and praying every single time we went to the food bank that we would get mushroom soup. It even got to a point where my father was asking the people at the food bank if they had mushroom soup. When we went to the grocery store for some reason, my dad never bought it. And I think it's because he started relying on the food banks to give it to us. People like I've spoken to about this have said it's disgusting. They couldn't imagine eating this. Don't knock it till you try it, basically. Oh, the pasta is ready. Well, not the pasta's ready, the water's ready. There's a lot about that time in my life that I don't like talking about for obviously a number of reasons. It just wasn't a very fun time to be a kid. We didn't have the opportunity to be actual kids. Didn't have the same things as all the other kids had. Like, for example, I don't know how to do a lot of things that a lot of kids learn how to do. Like the basic things like riding a bike. Don't know how to do that. I didn't know how to drive until, just last year. And I'm in my late 30s now. I don't know how to rollerblade, ice skate. I never played any sports. Never played any sports. Was never part of anything like that. Because we honestly just truly could not afford it. Like, we could not afford bicycles. And my mother was very protective of my sister and I, for reasons that are her own, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about. But she was very protective of us, as her children. So we never learned a lot of the things that kids typically learn. We didn't really get a lot of the childhood experiences that a lot of kids get. And I mean, sometimes I'm bitter about it, but then there's other times where it's like, I understand that some of this just isn't my parents' fault. In terms of our eating, I've referenced this many times. In my Walk With Me video with Ozempic, I've referenced how little we had and how that really had an effect on my eating. And it did. It had an effect on every aspect of my diet. My metabolism, things like that is really messed up because of that. And I didn't make it any better with Ozempic and not eating enough when I was with my husband, and I didn't make that shit any better, But when I look back at that moment, I try to think of like the little things like this that made my family happy. There was actually a moment, so my father, as I said, went to 4 food banks a month. There was a moment where he went to a food bank once, and it was the good food bank. We were, home from school that day. Another story time we're gonna have to be when I didn't go to school and was put on probation. Because yes, that actually happened. We were home from school and we were waiting for him to come home because he had gone to the good food bank. And we had not eaten yet that day. It was, I'm gonna say 2 o'clock-ish. And he had left early that morning because he had to take buses to get there. So we were waiting for him and we saw him coming up the street and pull his cart into the parking lot. He lived in like not a cul-de-sac, but like a little townhouse survey. And in that survey, there was like a square parking lot, and we could see clearly from our house. So we watched him walk into the parking lot, and this man's cart was completely filled. He had bags in each hand, and me and Britt ran out to help him, and we had never gotten this much from the food bank before. Like, it was the good food bank, but we got a lot from them for the first time in a while. But his cart was overflowing, and then our cart also wasn't that great. It was like a metal shopping, like little cart that people use for their laundry and stuff. And some of the bars were coming off it, so the food was spilling out, and thankfully he had the bags, in there pretty good, but we were having to help him get everything to our house. And we were so excited because they had given us things like mushroom soup, obviously. They had given us that, but they had also given us things like tuna And tuna was a big commodity in our house. It was the biggest source of protein. They gave us corned beef, and that was the first time I had corned beef ever. I'd never had it before that moment. But they also gave us like seasonings, because my parents did not buy seasonings. That was a foreign concept in our house. We did not buy seasonings. It's too expensive. No. So the only thing that we ever had as kids was salt in our food. My mom would salt the pasta water, and it was table salt, right? Like the cheap shit you get at the grocery store. That was the only seasoning I knew of. I didn't even know you could get other things, but they gave us like onion powder for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? It's a seasoning. My mom didn't know how to use it, so she didn't. So I started experimenting with it, which is why I am the way I am right now. We also got like Little Caesars pizzas. If you're from Canada, you probably know what Little Caesars is. It's like literally cheap pizza. You get like $5 pizzas from them. But we had never had these things before. These things were foreign concept to us. Okay, I have just quickly seasoned this. Oh, the pasta's done. I just quickly seasoned this. I didn't season this much. I just used some onion, garlic. I know, I get it. Fuck. And you know, that kind of stuff was just rare in our household. So it was a little bit of protein that we had, but that life really, really messed with me, and now I have the issues stemming from that. But this meal is and always will be a humongous comfort for me. I'm gonna season this a little bit more. I just tried it and it's not seasoned enough. So I'm gonna add a couple things that I didn't have back in the day. One of my regular seasonings is rotisserie chicken seasoning. And then I'm going to add some Parmesan and herb. I'm gonna give this bitch a good stir. I've already moved the pasta to, I've already drained it and moved it back to the pot. So the pasta's in here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna dump all this meat into here. It's a little heavy for my hand to hold them. There we go. Oh, I got it. Perfect. All right. And now I need to open up the 2 cans of mushroom soup. I have not opened them yet. I'm only opening up one at a time to see if we need 2 cans. Again, this is a habit from childhood. Making sure you need 2 cans before you open 2 cans. If you don't need 2 cans, you don't open them. But I have a feeling I'm gonna need both. Oh, you're still on. That was stupid. Okay. All right. I'm definitely gonna need both cans because that is not a lot. My can opener is dying. Woo. Both cans opened. All right. Let's give this bad boy a good stir. I'm gonna move this. This is just in the way now, being obnoxious. Now, a luxury that I have right now is I do have a 3rd can of mushroom soup. I did not have that luxury when I was a kid. Hold on, let me see if I can angle this a little bit better. So this is already better than what it was when I was a kid, obviously, because it's just bulkier. Now this meal for, you know, the whole thing would actually like feed us for 3 days. It would feed 4 people for 3 days. And then what I'm gonna do tomorrow, because I know this is gonna feed us for tomorrow too, is I'm gonna add a 3rd can of mushroom soup tomorrow when I heat it back up. I'm gonna add the mushroom soup tomorrow. But here we go. Mushroom macaroni. Old childhood staple. Please ignore my messy kitchen and do not judge me for it. Okay, for some reason I'm getting really emotional serving this, and I think it's because one of the last times I made this is when my mom was alive. I have not made this since my mom passed. So this is the first time I'm making it for just us 3. There's not a 4th bowl. So I'm getting a little emotional serving it, so I'm glad that I'm not facing the camera. And this will be for tomorrow. So this will be in a container. I'm going to add something else that we never had when we were kids. Parmesan cheese. Italian sawdust, as my friend Rosie calls it. Not the real stuff, this is the fake stuff. It's still cheese though. And that's dinner. So, today I'm making something that I've never made myself before, and that makes me a very bad Canadian. But I am making poutine. So I have to cut up some potatoes into fries. I have a fry cutter. And I'm making this for the whole family, so it's gonna be a lot of potato. And I got these potatoes, specifically like the white potatoes, because they're the best for making fries. Yeah, I've never made poutine, and it's something that I've always wanted to make. Yesterday I made the mushroom macaroni. It's for dinner again tonight. So this is gonna be our lunch for today. It's currently 2 p.m. because I'm horrible. I really need to stop eating so late in the day, but it's just a thing with me. I don't know what it is. I have not eaten yet today, and I yell at everybody else for doing that, but I don't know. I just can't get myself to eat properly, I guess. I don't know. I'm also making these in the air fryer. I'm not deep frying these potatoes, so they're gonna be a little on the healthier side. I've also decided that I'm not going to season them until the very end, so when they're hot I will season them, just so they come out like more salty and I don't lose some of that. When I'm actually cooking. This is a new shirt, by the way, Edgar Allan Poe. Love it, just got it yesterday. So we have to cut up the potatoes first. At least cut them in half. Well, maybe that one will fit. This one will fit just fine. Same with this one. But these ones are gonna have to be cut in half, so they'll be shorter fries. This is the fry cutter. I've shown this before. It's very handy. I would recommend getting one. If you've never seen them before, I got it on Amazon. You literally just stick the potato in. If the potato will fit. There we go. Stick the potato in. Make sure it's pressed down. Ouch. And do that. Just don't hurt yourself when you do it, like me. So we have all these fries. Oh, I pulled my back as well today, so I'm a little on the lopsided side, I feel like. I'm gonna run these through the mesh strainer just to get some of the starch off, and then I'm gonna soak them for about 10 minutes. We have the potatoes all cut up, washed. I actually omitted some of them straight up just because they were so small that they wouldn't have cooked properly. So there's about a potato and a half's worth of little bits here that I don't want to add to them just straight up because they'll just burn. And I'm not willing to do that. So now we have to get them olive oiled. We're gonna add just a little bit of olive oil and stir these up just so they have something to help crisp them up. So about a tablespoon, a little bit more. Tablespoon a bit. I'm really having to watch my back right now because I've actually pulled my shoulders. Okay, give those a good stir, and then I'm going to pop them into the air fryer. They're gonna cook for about 20 minutes, but I'm gonna check them every 5, just to make sure that they're not burning. And then while they're in there, I'm going to look at making the gravy. Oh, shit. Potato fry overboard. Fry overboard. Oh, no. It's okay, I struck one. Having a double basket really makes all the difference. Out a little bit so it has some airflow. Alright, so here in Canada we take our poutine very seriously. So seriously that we have our poutine gravy mix that comes in a pack. This pack makes 2 cups of gravy. I'm flip-flopping back and forth. Do I make 2 of these packets or 1? I just told Britt that I was gonna make 2, but I think she's right. I think we only need the 1 because it makes 2 cups of gravy. And all you do is add water to it. So I'm gonna wait for these to cook a little bit, and then when it's on its last 5 minutes, I'm gonna make this. And then you cannot make poutine without cheese curds. Squeakers, cheese curds, they are gonna be fantastic. We don't melt our cheese over top of poutine here. That's not how you make poutine. You make poutine by putting cheese curds on top of it. I've said this before in a Rosie live. If anyone ever gives you a poutine with melted mozzarella over top, they don't love you. Now, of course, if you can't stand the texture or the squeakiness of the cheese, like when it comes to cheese curds, then definitely get mozzarella. But if they don't know, and somebody just gives you a poutine with melted cheese or mozzarella cheese on top, they don't love you. They don't. I have 2 packs. I opened these, but yes, we're gonna use up this one first, obviously. All right, these have been cooking now for about 20 minutes. They're looking good. They're all getting crispy. I'm just gonna salt them, pop them in for 1 more minute with the salt on them. So literally all you do is you grab the packet and you grab 2 cups of water. That's all you need. 2 cups of water, 1 packet, and then you stir it over medium-high heat, or medium heat, sorry, constantly until it is hot and you're ready to go. The thing about this stuff is it's not high calorie. It is high sodium though, which is not great. Do I have to wait just to combine it? So we're going to do a combine. The only bad thing is it does have clumps in it. Alright, so the trick to poutine is to layer it. So you start off with a small layer of fries. Then you add a small layer of gravy and then some squeaky cheese. Okay, and then you repeat the process. And there you go. Poutine. Homemade poutine. The family has tried. They say it's good. Now I will try a piece of the curd cheese and the fries and gravy. So, for any of my non-Canadian friends who want to make their own gravy, I will gladly send you a care package with some gravy in it. Honestly. That hits all of the spots. So it's like, it's got that saltiness to it, but it's not too salty, which is good. And then the squeaky cheese when it gets warm. It's just everything. So yeah, there's poutine. Woo! So we're back to the mushroom macaroni. It's later in the evening, obviously. We had poutine for lunch. So I'm just gonna end off this vlog by heating up the leftovers from last night. It doesn't look as appetizing as it did last night, fully aware. It is a little on the drier side the next day. So again, I'm very fortunate, and we have 2 containers of it. So that's always good. But I'm fortunate enough to have a 3rd can of mushroom soup. So we're gonna add that in. I'm just heating up the frying pan right now. Gonna give it a little bit of oil, because the way to heat this back up is to pop it in the frying pan. So what my mom would do is she would always section it out into 2 days. So she would have a container kind of, you know, like these for 1 day, and then she would have another container that stayed in the fridge for the 3rd day. We would purposefully get the big like bags of pasta that, you know, held, I'm gonna say like 9-10 servings, something like that. We would get that in particular just so we would have enough to cover 3 days for 4 people. I was looking over the footage from yesterday and I was talking about how we never added anything to this and how we just didn't add protein to it ever. And there was a reason for that I didn't explain. My mother, even if we had the money to add ground beef to this, ground beef was a scarcity in our house. It wasn't something that we had a lot of. It wasn't something that we had all the time. And my mother would not waste good ground beef on something that didn't need it. And I kind of stayed with that as I got older. Like I started refusing to add protein to things that quote unquote didn't need it, just because I didn't want to waste it. I didn't want to waste the protein when I may have needed it for something else. That was a thing in our house, and it's unfortunate. Like, and I really hope that, you know, no one ever has to deal with that kind of thing in today's society. I know that a lot of people do, but I mean people in my life. I could not imagine knowing somebody and watching them go through this kind of deal today. There are a lot more resources today than there were in the 90s, thank God. Food banks are a lot better these days than they were back in the day, and I know this firsthand because for several years I volunteered at a food bank when my mother was alive. When she died, I had to get a full-time job to support the household. I was her caretaker. My sister and I were caregivers to my mother and my father. It was a two-person job, but when she passed away, we didn't have income anymore. She was on disability, so her income covered us. That wasn't a thing when she passed away, so I ended up getting a job when she passed, so I had to stop volunteering at the food bank. As sick as it is, I actually started work 2 days after my mother passed away. Like, I got the job, I was able to tell my mom that I got a job, and then 2 days after she passed away, I started training for that job. Not something that I would recommend, but again, dire straits. That's how bad it was. I did not have the time to sit in my grief. I did not have the time to mourn. I had a family to take care of. My sister did not have the time to mourn. She did not have the time to grieve. She had a disabled man in the house that she had to take care of now single-handedly, because I was at work for 8 to 10 hours a day, plus a 2-hour commute. Living the way that we did when we were kids really set us up for success in a lot of ways. It was hard. It was a hard go. It was hard growing up like that. It was hard not knowing how to do things, hard not having friends because all the friends did things that you couldn't do. For example, when the kids went swimming, on the weekends during the summer, I never learned how to swim, and we could never afford swimming lessons. We couldn't afford to send me, to those swim classes that all the kids were going to. Didn't have that opportunity. We couldn't go outside and ride bikes, as I said. We didn't have those. We were in the house kids, and learning how to be an adult very, very early in life taught me how to cope with several things when it came to growing up and having to take care of other people. Again, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, I grew up, and that's that. So now I'm heating up yesterday's pasta that was made lovingly with some inclusions. Let me show y'all. So this is heating up currently. It's looking very, very tasty, but it's just definitely not creamy enough. So I'm gonna add the mushroom soup in. It looks gross, I know. This was a step my mom had to skip. No extra mushroom soup. It was just in the frying pan, a little bit of margarine to help it along, but no additional mushroom soup to re-creamify it. Again, a luxury that some people wouldn't look at as a luxury, but I never take for granted. There we go. Dinner will be heated up and ready to go in just a couple minutes. By revisiting this, I really do realize how lucky I am now, and again, I never take that for granted. I also, as bitter as it makes me sometimes that I never had an actual childhood, because I say that all the time, I didn't have a child. I'm not going to go into my childhood. It's a traumatic 30 fucking years that I will not discuss. But it did make me who I am today. It made me a kind person. Not a nice person, a kind person. It taught me the difference between being nice and being kind. It taught me that there are things that come as a priority in your life, such as your family and your significant other and your very close friends, above anything else, including monetary stuff and things like that. My mother, this is turned into a video about my mom. My mother raised me that even though we had close to nothing, because I always say we had nothing. We didn't have nothing. Let me rephrase that. We didn't have nothing. We had close to nothing. We had a roof over our heads. I had a bathroom that I could go into. I wasn't living outside, even though we were very close several times. That was not my reality. I didn't have nothing. I had some things. I didn't have great food. I didn't have nutritious food. I only had one pair of pants that I wore for a solid year every year. I'm not kidding. I had health problems that went undiagnosed for 20 years. I didn't have money for glasses, etc., etc., etc. But I didn't have nothing. I had some things. And my mother taught me that even if you have, like somebody else has nothing. And if somebody else has nothing and you have something to give, then you give. One of my fondest memories of my mother is when we went to the grocery store. My mother was disabled mentally. I'm not going to discuss why she was disabled or how, but she was disabled mentally. And we went to the grocery store, and there was a gentleman there who was panhandling outside. He's very quiet. He just had a sign saying anything would help, etc. And when we walked in, she saw him. And then when we walked back out, she saw him again. On the way, when we were inside, she bought him some sweets. It's not what he needed, but in her brain, it was good to get him those things. So she bought him some sweets. And she gave them to us, and she said, give them to him. And so we went up to this man who had nothing, and we gave him the sweets that my mother had bought. And he was very thankful for them, because again, he had nothing. And then we were walking towards our vehicle, because at this point in time, we did have a vehicle. It was very old, very run down, but we did have a vehicle. My mother looked at my father and said, how much do we have left? Meaning money. And he said, $5. And she said, give me the $5. And he fought her. He fought her for this $5. And she said, give me the $5. And he gave her the $5. And she gave it. I am not PMSing. We had got everything that we needed. We had everything that we needed for the next couple weeks until my father got paid again. And we had food banks that we were going to. My mother took that $5 and she walked with us. She took us with her. My father stayed in the car and he stewed because he wanted to save that $5 so bad, but she couldn't. She couldn't allow him to keep our $5 when there was a man that had nothing. And she walked up to him with me and Britt beside her and gave him the $5. Didn't say a word, just said, have yourself a nice day. Have a great day. Go buy a coffee, it's cold. Oh, I did not want to cry on the internet. There are a lot of people who judge me on the internet. I know there is. There's a lot of people on the internet that are mean because I'm fat, and there's a lot of people on the internet that dislike me for whatever reason. I don't know, and I really don't care. But at least I can say that I was raised by a woman who was as caring as that, who taught me that kindness is more important than almost anything else in this world. And that is something that I hold on to and will always hold on to.